Hi, everybody. We're going to talk about the impacts of production. This will be posted on Edpuzzle, which is where you're going to see this anyway. And you'll answer a few questions along the way. But what we're focusing on here is how producers can modify their production in order to be more efficient. The goal of producers, of course, is to earn profit. If they want to do that, understanding that profit is the difference between sales and costs, they would want to find ways to lower their costs. They can lower their costs but are still producing more at the same time. We refer to that as being efficient. Different methods of efficiency. Number one, the division of labor. You think about a car wash where it's an assembly line type of production. Certain workers may work on the interior, on the exterior, on tires, etc. That would be the division of labor. If we are looking at specialization, specialization implies that workers do the jobs that they do the best. It doesn't necessarily mean that those jobs require a significant amount of skill, but it does mean that the more often they do it, the better off they get. The mass production of goods, or what your textbook would refer to as productivity, implies that it's to a producer's advantage to produce in bulk. That if you're producing large quantities, your supply is increased, which means your overall price to consumers would decrease. The interchangeable parts of production imply that each item is going to be exactly alike. That if you have to custom build everything that you do, it's going to slow things down and it's an inefficient use of resources. With that being said, a custom-made item is likely better quality, and therefore you could sell it at a higher price, but again, not too terribly efficient. And then to make an investment just simply means you're going to increase your time, you're going to increase your resources, financial resources, for example, in hopes of increasing your output at the same time. Now, investments do come with what's called a point of diminishing returns, that you can invest a lot of money in technology if you're a producer, but at a certain point, that extra investment doesn't necessarily have a significant impact in the long term. Same thing with investing your time, that you may study an hour for a test and that improves your grade maybe by 10 points. But if you study for 10 hours straight, you're going to wear yourself out. And so that extra time you put in doesn't necessarily increase your productivity. As a result of these methods, any investment you make, you're not looking at the short-term benefits, you're looking at the long-term benefits. And what producers have seen over time is that it makes sense to automate their production. It makes sense to rely upon technology, upon machinery, seeing as that is more efficient long-term. That yes, it's expensive to set up, but you don't have to. It's not a situation whereas with workers may not show up, they may not be productive. There are all sorts of variables that can't be controlled. With machinery, a lot of cost up front, routine maintenance, maybe upgrades, more efficient long term. As a result, when you look at these two lines, if the work is being automated, that means the machinery is doing most of the work. So high-skilled jobs are in lower demand. Their skills are going to be too advanced. And the jobs that remain are very repetitive, very low-skilled. And this phrase right here, that workers themselves can be replaced, well, this is interchangeable parts. That if the job you perform is very simple to do, your wages are going to be kept low, that it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to complain and protest and organize because an unruly group of workers can be replaced by a group of workers that won't complain. And so workers, or human capital, are kind of being devalued under this system. To really drive that point home, to kind of maintain these reduced cost of production, producers will look for ways to downsize, which really just means they're cutting costs, but usually what that means is they're cutting jobs. or they replace, again, that interchangeable parts part of it. You have a worker overseas where labor costs are going to be much lower, the supply of labor would be much higher, uh, and the government regulations would be lower, that it's going to be more efficient to produce over there, even given the shipping cost of sending things back. Now, the overall impact for producers, because they're efficient, they have lower costs. As a result, that's going to generate lower prices. Because of lower prices, there's going to be greater consumer demand. Because demand is going up, profits are going to increase, and as a result, producers are going to invest back into their production. So they're going to find ways to further specialize, to further mass produce, to further invest, to again increase their productivity while lowering their input. For workers, it's a mixed bag. The increase in production is going to create jobs, which is undoubtedly positive, but many of these are low skilled or interchangeable to the point where the benefits of those extra jobs, are you improving the quality of jobs? Maybe you are, maybe you're not.